before I got here, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who the real Marcus Smith was. All I knew was the shield that was in front of me and the helmet that I wore.
Welcome back to Recovery APN. My name is Dan. I'm joined by my co-host Andy.
What's up, pal?
How you doing today?
I'm excited. We had a big guest this week. I'm pumped.
Yeah, very exciting guest. Something that I have awareness towards, I think, or I know, being a former athlete.
There's a little bit of a difference here, but yeah, I hear you.
But listen, just let me go.
All right.
I think that it's interesting for me to relate to former athletes as being in recovery, right?
Sure.
And I think one of the things that I've seen over the last 2 weeks is two current NFL players have announced their recovery with Max Crosby and Darren Waller, and we have the opportunity today to interview a former professional athlete. So
Sure.
I'm very excited to hear from his perspective.
Yeah, I mean, recovery and mental health, especially over the last 10 years. I mean, whether it's a hot word, but it's definitely a topic that's being discussed a lot more now than 20 years ago. We don't talk about mental health and substance abuse, right? So the fact that we're able to have these conversations, again, super excited for today.
Yeah, and I give them all the credit in the world, right? Have these huge platforms and everyone's looking up to them because of what they do on the field or on the court, and now they have the opportunity to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And I give them all the credit in the world that they have the ability to use these platforms to do so.
Yeah, and it's also opposite, right? What are we taught? No surrender, don't give up. In recovery and in the balance of mental health, it's you have to surrender to win. And it's almost like a paradox to us, right? So that concept of being vulnerable is, again, it could be so foreign to people, but once you're strong enough to do that, the growth can be, it's huge.
Yeah, and I also think there's fear involved too, right? You're almost questioning what you say and trip over every word because of whether it be the teams you play for, the sponsorships you had, the people that look up to you. Once you start broaching the mental health or substance abuse topics, people's jaws drop because they're only noticing you on the field, right?
Sure.
Not what you're actually going through. So
not like a person.
Exactly. Not like us,
Yeah.
Not like Dumb and Dumber over here.
Speak for yourself, pal. Let's go.
But yeah, I'd like to welcome Marcus. Marcus, thank you for joining us.
Man, what's up, man?
Hey, Marcus.
I like the dialogue, going back and forth. I appreciate that, man.
No, it's awesome that you're here, man. And like I was saying earlier, man, I really appreciate it. I give you so much credit for joining us, but also just utilizing your platform to speak about what you've gone through.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me on. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's very important to, continue to have the conversation, talk about some of the things that we deal with as athletes, but then at the same time as people too, because we all deal with some form of mental health. So I think that's cool.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, I grew up in I'm a youngest Italian child, but my father didn't say, hey, son, it's okay to cry or be, hey, just keep it moving, keep your mouth shut and keep, work harder, So this whole concept of, being a man and being a tough guy, right? Again, it's that stigma which mental health and recovery is trying to kind of tap into and kind of break down that barrier. So we're pumped to have you on, pal.
Man, appreciate that.
So I know we talked about it earlier, right? But the structure of our show is we get the opportunity to talk to APN alumni, right? And I think the goal is really to get a better understanding of what brought the alumni to APN, more importantly, what their experience was at APN, and then, what they're doing now, how are the tools they learned at APN and how are they bringing that to their everyday life. So I guess my first question to you would be, and go as deep as you want, but kind of what brought you to APN? What was the deciding factor saying, I'm going to pick up the phone and get help?
Man, I think for me, you got 2018. Obviously, I was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round.
Dude, we may have an issue. I'm a Giant fan.
Man,
Go Birds, go Birds.
Hey, man, but I was drafted early. Nobody in my family was ever reached that highest pinnacle of their career. So I was the only one to ever reach that. So I really never had anyone to actually talk to about what I was going to deal with as, being a pro. And I was dealing with anxiety and depression for a long time before I actually knew what it actually was. And so a lot of us who play football, We go through these things every year with camp because we're trying to do our best for the coaches. We're trying to, be our very best to get another contract and things of that nature. But we drive ourselves crazy doing it because it's a wear and tear on our brains. And so over time, you keep that going for a couple of years. And in 2018, had a scare in which I tried to, end my own life. And I think in 2018, that was the head of when I didn't care about anything else. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I just felt like no one could help me. And I used to tell my wife, like, I don't know what this is, but, I don't want to deal with this pain anymore. And so it was 2 times I was driving to the facility. I'm on the way to the facility, and I'm about to drive off this kind of like cliff. And as I'm driving and as I go off this cliff, or like the wheel is kind of like bent a little bit, and my wife calls me. And I jerked the car back out of frustration and fear. And so now I'm talking to her on the phone, trying to rush her off the phone to actually do what I had set out to do that morning when I woke up. And so I finally get off the phone. I tell her, like, look, I'm trying to listen to some music. I'm trying to get ready for practice. But in all, like, I'm hurting. Like, the pain, I didn't feel like my wife could help me at the time as she wanted to. Like, she wanted to help me so much, but I was so much of suppressing everything that's what I was so used to.
Mm.
And so she gets off the phone, and then I try to do it again. My mother-in-law calls me.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So I jerked the car back out of frustration again, and I'm like, God, like, what is going on? You know what I'm saying? But that was just God, like, hey, you have a bigger...
Yeah, keep you here for a reason.
Right.
Yes,
you have a bigger cause. You need to be here. This is not something that can take you away from this earth. Mm-hmm. And my mother-in-law, by the time I was done talking to my mother-in-law, I was at the bottom of the hill. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized, like, oh man, what did I just do? Right? That's when it hit me.
Yeah.
And so I walked away after that. And then I went to seek therapy, right? But after that, that's how I ended up kind of molding myself into coming to APN, because a couple years had passed. It was like 2020, right? And I was doing therapy like every night now and again, and I felt like I just wasn't like getting anywhere. Like I felt like I needed something else. Like we was talking about before, like I never gave myself a chance to actually I never gave myself a chance to sit down and look at, okay, I'm not in the league anymore, right?
What's happening now?
Right.
Yeah.
I never gave myself that chance. I just tried to jump into everything because I didn't want to go broke. I didn't want to be one of the statistics. And I never gave myself that time. And so that's what I felt like I needed from APN, sure. Right? But I don't know if you guys know, an old teammate, he told me about APN, and I was just blown away when he told me, and I'm like, that's what I need. I need something like that. And then I got the opportunity to come out here for 30 days. I had to leave my kids, and it was like the hardest thing for me to do.
Yeah,
but I wanted to heal,
Yeah, no. First of all, I appreciate you sharing that. Mind blowing to me, and I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you.
It's crazy. So like hearing that story, right? Like your wife and your mother-in-law like saved your life,
right?
Like full on just saved your life, right? And like that's incredible to hear. And I think my question is like, now that you're approaching APN, right? You've decided to make that decision to come, and you mentioned like you had to leave your kids and your wife. Like, how was that conversation to them? Like, when did you have to admit to them that like, hey, like, I almost like took my life. Like, I'm struggling. Like, I need help bad. And like, what was their reaction to it?
Yeah, I think so. My wife, she was pregnant at the time with my daughter in 2018, and I started to get help, and it was helping a little bit. I was able to see my daughter born. I was happy. That was one of the greatest days of my life. And over time, you just get back into like the old habits, and then you just feel like you're not worth anything because you don't have the sport anymore. And it's like I didn't have any true identity, and so I was going down that path. And I talk to Miss Tammy about this all the time. Like,
shout out Miss Tammy,
right?
Yeah.
It's like I was very irritable, not knowing like why am I irritable, right? I'm so used to putting my hands on people because I play defense, right? I put my hands on people every day, and I can't use that aggression anymore. So I have to figure out a way to channel that somewhere else. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what worked best for me.
Sure. I mean, like, touching on again on that story, like they say we live life forwards, but we understand it backwards, right? And we never know the moments when they're happening. And even that moment, 2018, you didn't get to APN then. Obviously, we weren't even open at that point, but like that started that process, right? And the concept of like maybe one of the worst days in your life could now look back and be like, thank God that happened, that craziness, because it brought me to these, to this journey, which then brought me to APN, which set me on this path. And like the fact that you're here and like talking about it, it's like, again, goosebumps and chills. And I think it's pretty cool. And the concept of, leaving the family again is that's such a leap of faith, for anybody, you know what I mean? And
I think my wife, it was like a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Cause I remember when I told her that I was leaving the game and she had found out what I had did, she came in and she was crying. Like, she was just crying so hard because it was almost, she looked at me as almost like I had already.
Yeah.
Like.
And how do you fix it?
Right.
How do you do it?
Like, and so I think it was a sigh of relief for her when I said, look, I'm going to take this upon myself and I'm going to get the help that I need. And it was just like, for her, it was like, please, like, I want you to, because I want us to be better.
Yeah.
And then even here, like, we did like the couples therapy too, and it was great for us.
That's awesome.
So
that's incredible.
It really is.
It's like, I don't know, for me, it's like hearing that story and hearing how vulnerable you are right now, it's like mind blowing because I've always, and like every other kid, right? It's like you always put these athletes on a pedestal, right?
Right.
And like I'm the first one to like, I'll take full like blame for it because like you don't look at them as real people, right? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that like, yes, our stories are so different in my journey, but there's so many things that you talked about that I could relate to.
Yeah.
You know, just like, and I don't know, it's like I get emotional hearing it because like I see how dumb I was thinking like, oh, they're on a pedestal, they don't have feelings, right? And it's like I think the whole population does, right? You turn on the TV, NBA, NFL, and it's like they're just like going out there. They're getting paid millions of dollars. Like, what? You shouldn't have feelings, right? But at the end of the day, they're real people, and they should be able to treat real people.
Well, the concept of like who's Marcus without being a football player, right? You know what I mean? Like everyone has their identity wrapped up in whether it's work or the guy that's in shape or whatever it is, right? And if you take that away, it's like, well, then who am I and what kind of value do I have? And you talked about being like perfect when you were working for the next contract and trying to be a good family man and trying to be a good teammate and everything. You're trying to be perfect, and now that's not there. Like, where do I go, right? And so not just we all need that direction. And when you were expressing like how much it hurt, we don't even know how, like, because no one says when we're in 8th grade or in high school, like, hey, when you're suffering from depression, this is what's going to happen. Like, you have no idea. You know what I mean?
No guide.
No. So again, thank your buddy, whoever your buddy was that, kind of gave you the, hey, what about APN? Like, what an angel, like, thank God.
So, shout out to that guy.
Shout out to that guy.
All right. So let's like
dive in APN.
Yeah. Let's get into APN. So you've never been to treatment before, right? Or you've never been to any type of rehab or any type of facility.
Mental health, wellness.
So you walk in, right? You get picked up in Denver. I'm kind of like, what's your, first opinion? What are you feeling? And then like, as the days progress, like walk us through like, just like a day in the life of you and like what your thoughts were and kind of like your experience.
Man, first of all, APN is an amazing place. And I think that athletes and the general population, this is a place where you come to get healing and you can leave feeling amazing about yourself. And before I got here, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who the real Marcus Smith was. All I knew was the shield that was in front of me and the helmet that I wore. And so when I got off the plane, my thought process was more so like I wasn't really ready to open up, you know what I mean? Because I didn't know how to. And I was going to come in and, you know, maybe be the quiet guy and just like listen and observe. But when I got here and how nice everyone was and how the camaraderie was, when I stepped in and I seen other people having conversations and talking about some of the same stuff that I'm dealing with, I'm like, I can't be quiet anymore. Like, I got to get this off of me because, like, I'm just going to sit here and rot and not, like, take on the full responsibility of getting the healing that I solely deserve. Yeah. And so that was, like, the first thing. Like, everybody was having a conversation. We talked, and I was able to get all of the things that were deeply embedded in me out in the atmosphere that I haven't talked about in years, that I forgot was even there.
Walking around with that 1,000-pound brick that you get to drop.
Yeah. It just felt like it felt like a weight lifted that first day, but it was so much to unpack, and I didn't realize like how much stuff I was gonna unpack as I was going through the process. As we were unpacking, there's tons of shit.
It's crazy, and I'm just sitting here, right, thinking about my experience, right, and like obviously it's like I always have to make the show about me in some way or another.
Right. Shout out there.
Shout out.
No, I'm just like I'm thinking about just like my experience, and we come from totally different backgrounds, right? Totally different occupations, right? I don't know where'd you grow up?
Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah, so I grew up in North Jersey.
Wow.
And I had that same exact mindset, right? Walking in, like all this weight on my shoulders, walking in thinking like, all right, I'm gonna go to treatment and let's see how I can get by, right? Like maybe I don't have to, maybe I could be quiet, maybe I could just like skeet through life, right? And figure it out from there. And then you walk into an environment, and from my perspective, like you see all these individuals that are like-minded, right? Are struggling with something, but feel comfortable enough to express how they feel, what ultimately made me feel comfortable sharing because I was in like a safe and trusted place. And like, as you were describing that, like in my head, like I remember sitting in like the truck coming up here, thinking about like ways I'm gonna like, not scheme it, but like think about like, okay, if I'm quiet or this or that, like I could just get by and then make everyone happy, right? And hopefully I'm okay. And it's like, for whatever APN does, right? And I think whether it's the therapist, whether it be the staff, whether it be the community itself, whether it be the infrastructure, all that combined, it just provides you that safe space where it's like, I'm going to unpack this.
Yeah.
And then like,
and be safe.
And be safe doing it. Yep. So it was just like, I don't know, for me, like, it was just like, wow, like totally different people, yet like have the same mindset.
Man. Same here. I just felt the same way.
Well, I'm curious too. Like, and again, I got sober in a rehab too. Not this facility, hadn't been open yet. But so much you lean on staff so much, right? And then this therapist and that staff member, but also the relationship with my peers, right? There's like 2 or 3 guys that I had known, like 3 or 4 months, but I felt like I had known my whole life, right? And like, because we can unload those same feelings that I only thought I had. I only thought I was the only, anxious, depressed, all this stuff, right? And then you meet other people that are going through the same stuff, and I'm able to unload that, and so are they, and be there for each other in that setting. Do you have any of those relationships that you're still in contact with, and do you guys like hold each other accountable, or you check in with each other now? And what does that look like with the peers that you went through treatment with?
Man, I do. I have a couple, well, more than a couple actually, that I actually talk to weekly, because like you said, we didn't know that a lot of us were kind of like dealing with the same things, and all of us have different stories, but seeing each other share, it sparked a lot of friendships and something that can never be broken. It's almost like being in the locker room again, right? I'm in the locker room with the guys, but it's different now. We're not all on edge.
Sure.
We're vulnerable, and we're trying to help one another.
And we're still, right, like-minded people going to a like-minded goal, right? Whether it's again in the locker room, but now in the recovery and the wellness state, we're going for trying to be healthy, men and be fathers and be sons and be brothers and employees. So yeah, I think that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I had a question for you that Andy kind of just like brought up. The community here, right? Your whole life, you've been accustomed to being in the locker room with like football players, other athletes, whatever they may be, coaches. Now you come to APN, and now you're just like an array of different people. I'm kind of curious on what that experience was like for you, and like what you got out of it.
I think when it being array of different people, I'm a very personable person, and it was very neat to see because my sister, she doesn't play any sports or anything, but I look at her as someone who is in the quote unquote general population.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I hit it off with the people that were here, and then also if they know you play sports, they want to ask questions and things of that nature. So it was always good to do and actually be in the same setting with them sometimes, to hear their different stories, because even though they hear us, like that let me know that it's not just all the way athletes dealing with this stuff, and it's like they are people too just as well. Like it was really good to see. I think that I really love the fact that I could mingle with people that were in a different business space. Maybe they were CEOs of a big company or whatever it may have been. It was just like, wow, like I would have never known that they were dealing with that too.
Yeah,
I think it's
everybody.
Incredible. Yeah,
I think it's
everybody.
incredible, and I think there's like, it's a very unique environment that that APN presents, because you have people in all walks of life, all different ages that are here for. I'll generalize it, but like one common cause, right? And that is to heal, right? We're obviously going through different struggles, but like you don't see, obviously, like to your point, like they see your football player, oh, like where'd you get drafted, where'd you play? But I think once you get beyond that, right, it's like, how was your day? How was your process group? Oh, like we have DBT. Oh, like are you coming on this hike, right? And now it's just like everyone's like at the same level, right? We're all here. We're all fighting this fight together. And I just find that like when I walk, like I had my own experience with that when I was here. Like I would walk into the cafeteria and I became very close with some of the athletes here. But you walk in, catch up, one's hanging out with like a 7-year-old mother, right? A 21-year-old like college kid. And it's just like awesome because they're not, they don't see what's in front of them, right? It's just like what's inside of them. And they want to make sure that like they had a good day. Yeah. Oh, you had a bad day? Like what was wrong today?
It's also not the football player anymore. You're just Marcus, just Bill, just whoever, that's who it is at that point. And the lawyer who has his identity wrapped in the lawyer isn't the eternity. He's just John. He's just Susan, at that point.
It was the first time in a long time that I felt like that.
That's awesome.
That I was like an actual human being person. Nobody addressed me as, hey, Marcus Smith, you played for the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't, when I say ask questions, it was more so like, Did you go work out? You trying to go work out with me? You know what I'm saying? Just, because they understand like working out is a good stress reliever. It's good for anxiety. You know what I'm saying? So I love that part.
No, it was funny. And like I would do that. Like I was boys with one and I'd make him like work out with me. And I always like tell him like I was a better athlete, and he loved it because no one would ever like have a big mouth like I did.
Yeah.
He always like, oh, do this. So I was like, dude, like you were nothing, man. Like,
everybody on this pod knows that you got a large mouth there, bro.
So we talked about the community. Now let's talk about like, I know in a lot of people's experience through treatment, they usually become close with some of the staff, and they play like a vital role in their journey through their time here. I'm kind of curious, was there any, APN employee or multiple employees that played a pivotal part in your journey here?
Definitely Laura and Miss Tammy definitely like changed my scope of the way I thought about things. One of the things that really helped me with my trauma was we did an exercise called the trauma egg, and it really helped me sift through every piece of trauma that I ever been through. And I just think that because of that, and what we built, and me being able to be vulnerable and speak and talk to both of them, I just think that we've created a relationship that's will last a lifetime. Like I can still text them and like ask questions, or like I text Tammy all the time, like, hey, you got 5 minutes, or can I ask you a question? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm really the mental health space in general for me is like, it's so intriguing to me, because when I got to APN, I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I know now about, how we are as people. And you know what else? I wanted to say this. One of the things that I love about APN too, because as football players, our schedules are like straightforward. Like you got to be here at this time and stuff. And it allowed us the same type of feel, right?
Structure.
Structure.
Yeah.
They gave us a schedule. Like, hey, I know I need to be here. And it helped me even when I got home, because I wanted that same thing. So I was telling my wife, like, hey, I got to do this, and this, So
Absolutely.
No, I think when I had the opportunity to talk to Tammy and Laura specifically about the yourself and how they both talked about you, it always like a smile to their face. And like after hearing that, it's like they're so vested in your success. You were not just another athlete that came to the lodge, right? You were Marcus, right? And it's like, oh, you should talk about his wife. You should talk about his kids. They knew about your family, right? They knew about, Tammy sent me the website for your podcast, right? And like, so like, it was like as if like you were like one of their kids, right? And it's like they're so vested in helping you to get to that healing point. And like to hear you talk about them and you feel that trust, it's just like amazing to hear.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate that.
You know what I think
They're
is
great people, man.
We Laura, Tammy, Arlene, rock stars, right? The concept when you talked about the trauma egg, right? And I think we kind of talked about this earlier, where before we're here, we're unaware of like how sick we are or what's really happening, right? And so one of the gifts to this recovery aspect is I'm aware of like what's going on. But before I get here, it's like, hey, trauma's driving and I'm just sitting shotgun and we're going to go wherever trauma wants today, right? So to identify, the trauma egg and that aspect of it, and then to be able to work through it with, like clinicians like Laura, like Tammy, like Arlene, again, it's just awesome that we know that we have that strong of a clinical program there and that you're seeing the benefits of it. So
I never cried so much in my life. It was like the best thing ever.
Good.
As a man, you know.
And then, it's funny. I'm like, you standing next to Tammy, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, what a picture that is.
Yeah, man.
Tammy's 5'3". Shout out, Tammy.
No, it's incredible. And like, again, I give you so much credit in the world to, and I say this to everyone, right? Like, I look at you as like no different than the person that we had before, because like they were, just as vulnerable as you are. Yeah. And like, I look at you now as like someone that's like,
worked your butt off.
Worked your ass off here like any other of our alumni. I just, it's no matter who I speak to, right? I think it's on this platform, right? And speaking to, current clients at APN now or other alumni or other people listening, it definitely, there's always fear for me every time I come on and be able to speak about this, because in my head, there's always going to be a level of judgment in terms of like the topics we talk about or how we discuss it. So I give you all the credit in the world.
Man, thank you for that.
Let's get to. I'm curious. Like since you've left, what tools have you used that APN taught you? What's life like been with your family, with getting the word out about mental health and just your story? I'm kind of curious to hear what life's been like.
Man, first off, they told us like once we left, once you leave APN, you get back into the real world, and it's not as easy as people think, right? And so the things that you do learn, you're going to have to apply them right away. And so one of the things that I learned was positive self-talk and, the breathing exercises, and then also meditation, because I got in a state when I left of being in a place where I was becoming like irritable again. Mm-hmm. And I had to practice those things that I learned, and also continued therapy, and being able to talk to Tammy each week to talk about what went on that week and what happened that week. So I think that ultimately that's what it is. This is not something that is gonna go away. I learned that it's not gonna go away, but this is a journey. It's something that you're gonna have to face and continue to conquer.
You don't graduate.
Right.
Yeah.
Each and every day. That's a good one.
It's like you got to keep going, keep grinding on it.
Yeah. And I just feel like, you know, with my family, when I got back home, they was just like, they just felt a lot different from me because I was being very proactive and where I was trying to go. And I seen, even in business, even with the things that I was doing, me talking about mental health more, everything was just, you know, skyrocketing because I came here and I decided to take a step on that journey. Even the therapist that I had before was in Seattle, but obviously after COVID, I guess the rules went back to like you can't do online anymore.
Zoom, yeah.
So she was even happy that I took that step, and she was commending me for taking that step. I didn't know how real that step was.
Tough step.
Obviously,
It's a tough step.
You know what I mean? But when I got home, it was tough at first. But I wanted to make sure that I applied everything that I learned. Showed my wife the trauma egg. I said, "Look at this," and she was like, "Wow." And I was like, "You want to talk about it?" And she was like, "Yeah, let's talk about it." So I got the opportunity to talk to her about it and just actually, you know, free myself again. Yeah. So that's the process that I'm still on today. Just continue therapy and just trying to, you know, stay above, you know, water, even keel, and know that I can continue to conquer this thing every day.
Absolutely. Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome, right? Like, and I was going to ask you about when you got home, what was it like the first interaction with your wife and I guess your newborn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that, like, I don't know, you kind of just talked about it where it was like, obviously it was awkward and it's like you get home and you're not in like this 24/7 support or surrounded by like-minded individuals. Now it's like, it's almost like walking into like a football stadium. It's like lights on, like, all right, cameras on, like game time.
I got to be a father again.
Yeah.
You know, I got to do all the things that I was doing before I left. But that's why the tools that they give you here, you can take it right there, and if you actually apply them, they work. They really, really work.
When they work, it's such like a positive, like, oh shit, like my therapist wasn't just like they were just like talking points, like breathing and meditation, which saves my life. You know, like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I get it. How's real quick? I wanted because Dan said it's not about me, but when you said negative talk, do you notice where you like? Because I have negative self talk too, and the place I see it the worst with myself is on the golf course. Do you? I'm so mean to myself on the. I don't know why, because I stink. But like, do you notice any particular areas where you see your negative self talk kind of creeping back in?
Yeah, I want to go back to.
Go ahead.
Like when I the way I grew up, like my father was, you know, very hard on me. And so that's the way I carried everything in life. I was always harder on myself. So naturally, negative things creep into my mind about certain situations, like, you know, am I going to get this certain position, or am I going to be able to do it this way, or like you're not good enough. Yeah. You can't do that. And so a lot of times that creeps in. Even when I'm playing, I may be playing basketball or something, it'll creep in, but I have to continue to talk to myself and kind of rebuke that part of it and be like, no, I'm more than a conqueror. I can do this. Love it. And that's one of the things that we talked about, in our groups. It's like, how do you talk to yourself? Yeah. And it's okay to talk to yourself. You're not crazy if you talk to yourself.
The voices, right? Yeah, right. The committee. Yeah.
No, it's funny. As you were talking about that and you bring it up, I laughed, but it's like true for me too, right?
So mean to me.
And
why? Like,
I think for myself, I look back, right, and like I convinced myself that the negative self-talk was like motivation for me. Yeah. But like, oh, like you're not good enough. All right, I'm going to prove myself wrong, right? But in reality, it was just like punching myself in the gut, right? I was never going to be successful having that negative self-thought. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Lastly, I want to talk about the circle of M, right? I think for me, I again, credit all to you, being able to create a platform that touches on mental health that comes straight from your mouth. So I'm kind of curious on like how that journey started, and would love for you to kind of chat about it. I would love for our listeners to listen to that pod as well.
Man, well, I started a podcast / show called The Circle of M. Circle of Marcus, my circle of mental health, however you want to put it. But I started it after APN, and I noticed that the people that were here at APN were struggling. We were struggling together, but we were coming together for a common cause. And then I noticed also with people who haven't came to APN, who are actually doing this work, they are struggling outside of it and are afraid to talk about it. So what I did was I just created a safe place like you guys are doing, for athletes, for entertainers to be able to come and speak about their different mental health journeys. And it's a 501c also. And our job is to, unmask the feelings that cause anxiety, depression. Obviously, I'm not a therapist, but if I can at least start the conversation for an athlete, right, they can come to a place. I can tell them about a place like APN where they can come get the healing that they solely desire.
Love that. Like planting the seed, or I've heard people say it's like throwing a pebble into somebody's shoe, and you walk around until that's just annoying enough to look at it. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think you talking with them, right? I think you automatically are making them feel comfortable, right? You've already admitted to them, hey man, you're not alone, dog. Right. And then they come in and it's I feel comfortable in this safe space, and let's talk. And then wherever that conversation goes, most likely it's going to go in a positive direction based off that, just because of the safetyness that you've created. So you told me that 21 shows so far.
Yeah,
awesome. It's exciting.
I think it's 21, but yeah, man, thecircleofm.com, you can, go
where can
watch.
we find it? Yeah.
So yeah, if you go to thecircleofm.com, all of the episodes will come up on the actual website, and then you can watch all the different episodes. You can hear different people's journeys and things of that nature. So yeah,
I was on it the other day, and it's funny. I was going down, and I was just wow, no shit. Wow, crazy, right? And it wasn't the star power of them being a good athlete. It was right. It was no shit. Wow. Good for them that they're speaking out about this. Yeah. Right. It was just for me, it's in my journey, when I see other people relate, it could be again, a house mom. It could be a 21-year-old going through what I went through or whatever it was. It's just wow, it's another man on my team,
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Creating that place, man. Creating a safe place is very important, because a lot of us, especially men, it's just hard for us to talk about our feelings.
Absolutely.
And growing up, we was just man, come on, man, come over here with that soft stuff.
Yeah.
But you stepping in, doing this. I appreciate you guys for having me, because me coming up here again and then getting a release, getting that free feeling, being on this podcast is free feeling for me, and I get the opportunity to push it out into the atmosphere once again. So I thank you guys too.
I love it. And being helpful, in the world's economy, right? Hey, I have assets, I have a house, but in the spiritual economy, helping people, you know what I mean? How much can I give away? You know what I mean? Right. And that's, how cool is it? So to be in that spot and to be, able to have 21 and a show kind of going, pods going, and helping, people is huge. And again, we're happy and we're lucky to have you on here today. And Dan, I mean, another good one, pal.
Hold on.
What do you got?
Spiritual economy.
Yeah, you love it.
I love it.
So I always throw one at Dan. I love it. Got to keep him on his toes.
Where did you hear that from?
Don't worry about it. Listen, none of them are mine. I just steal them from people.
Spiritual economy, right? Unbelievable.
Can't take the money with
it's
you,
uniquely
useful.
Useful,
We're
right?
uniquely useful.
No, I appreciate it, man. You were awesome, dude. Another shout out, the Circle of M. You can find it at thecircleofm.com. Go check it out. He has some awesome interviews in there. If you want to reach out to us, feel free to email our podcast at pod@apn.com. That is pod@apn.com. And if you want to see our other podcasts, you could visit
or this one,
but they're probably listening already. So
stop it. You're right. Good call. I'll take a lap.
You could visit apn.com/podcast. That is apn.com/podcast. And appreciate everyone listening. And thank you again, Marcus.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you for having me.
That's great.